The hospital discharge papers felt heavy in my hands as I stared at my phone's banking app. Zero balance. Every account drained, every investment liquidated. 3 months in a coma had given my brother plenty of time to dismantle my life. "It's really for the best," Marcus said, lounging in the hospital room's visitor chair. "You were always too cautious with money. Dad's tech company needed bold moves to stay competitive." I carefully folded the discharge papers, my movements still slow after months of inactivity, and those bold moves required my entire inheritance. "While technically it was our inheritance," he smirked. "I just consolidated the resources, made things more efficient." My name is Sarah Chin, and at 32, I was watching my brother justify stealing everything our father had left me. What Marcus didn't know was that during those 3 months he thought I was completely unconscious. My mind had been far from inactive. The car accident that put me in a coma had been bad. Multiple fractures, internal injuries, and severe head trauma. The doctors hadn't expected me to wake up at all. But while my body had been healing, my consciousness had existed in a strange state of semi-awareness. I could hear everything happening around me, even if I couldn't respond. And Marcus, convinced I was completely oblivious, had done a lot of talking. The medical bills were expensive, he continued, checking his new Rolex. Bought with my money, no doubt. Had to make some tough choices. But hey, you're alive, right? That's what matters. I looked at the medical bills he laid on my bedside table. Nearly $1 million in treatments and rehabilitation costs. All now my responsibility. He'd not only taken my inheritance but saddled me with debt. "Of course," I said softly. "Thank you for handling everything." He frowned slightly, probably expecting more resistance. Marcus had always been the aggressive one, the entrepreneur who burned through 3 startups before Dad finally gave him a position at Chen Technologies. I was the quiet one, the careful one, the one who'd actually earned her position as head of R&D through hard work rather than nepotism. What he'd never understood was that being quiet didn't mean being weak. During those 3 months of forced stillness, I listened to Marcus making calls, conducting meetings by my bedside, believing his comatose sister made the perfect confidant for his schemes. He'd laid out everything. How he'd manipulated the board, falsified documents, used my medical condition as an excuse to seize control of both our inheritances. But he'd made one crucial mistake. "The company lawyers will need your signature on some paperwork," he said, pulling out a folder. "Just standard stuff. Transferring your shares, acknowledging the debt consolidation. You know, formalities." I took the folder with trembling hands. The weakness wasn't entirely an act. 3 months in a coma takes its toll. "Could you get me some water? My throat's still dry." The moment he left the room, I pulled out my phone and sent a single text. "It's done." He brought the papers. Sarah, my best friend and corporate lawyer, no relation despite the shared name, replied immediately, recording everything. "Keep him talking." Marcus returned with the water, setting it on the table with exaggerated care. "Here you go, sis. Now, about those papers." "Of course," I said, taking a small sip. "But first, could you explain exactly what happened with the Mitchell contract?" I'm still a bit fuzzy on the details. His eyes lit up. Marcus never could resist bragging. "Oh man, that was brilliant. See, Mitchell Industries thought they were getting exclusive rights to the new quantum processing algorithm. But I managed to sell the same technology to 3 different companies. They all think they have exclusive deals." I nodded encouragingly, watching him dig his own grave. The quantum processing algorithm had been my project, my life's work. Dad had left it to me specifically because he knew how revolutionary it could be. And now Marcus was openly admitting to multiple counts of corporate fraud. "But won't they figure it out eventually?" I asked, my phone recording every word. He waved dismissively. "By then it won't matter. I've already moved most of the money offshore. The company can take the hit. That's why I needed your shares. Had to have controlling interest to push it through." "I see," I said quietly. "And the medical bills? Why are they in my name when Dad's insurance should have covered everything?" Marcus shifted slightly, the first sign of discomfort he'd shown. "Well, there were some complications with the policy. Had to make some adjustments to free up capital for the deals." "Adjustments," I repeated. "Like canceling my coverage retroactively." "Hey, business is business," he said, his tone hardening. "Look, just sign the papers." Unless you want to try fighting the medical bills on your own. I picked up the pen, appearing to study the documents. One more thing. What happened to Dad's personal research files? The ones he kept in the home office. Marcus froze for just a moment, long enough to confirm what I'd suspected. During one of his bedside monologues, he'd mentioned destroying some problematic documents. Those old things probably got thrown out during the estate cleanup. Nothing important. I knew better. Those files had contained Dad's personal observations about the company, including his concerns about Marcus's business practices. Their destruction was just one more crime to add to the list. You're probably right, I said, positioning the pen over the signature line. Nothing important. Just then, my phone buzzed. Another text from Sarah. We've got everything. Don't sign anything. I set the pen down carefully. Actually, Marcus, I'm feeling a bit tired. Would it be okay if I reviewed these tomorrow? Everything's still a bit overwhelming. He frowned but couldn't very well force a recovering coma patient to sign legal documents. Sure, whatever. I'll come back tomorrow. Just don't take too long. The board needs these processed quickly. After he left, Sarah slipped into the room, her expression a mixture of satisfaction and disgust. We got it all. Every admission, every detail. The fraud, the insurance fraud, the document destruction. Everything. I leaned back against the pillows, finally letting the exhaustion show. What's next? First, we get you out of here. My place is ready. Accessible bathroom, hospital bed, everything you need for recovery. Then she smiled grimly. We start dismantling everything your brother built while you were sleeping. That night, settled into Sarah's guest room, I thought about all the hours Marcus had spent by my hospital bed, arrogantly revealing his schemes to what he thought was an unhearing witness. He'd assumed my silence meant weakness, my stillness meant defeat. He'd forgotten Dad's most important lesson. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous. I picked up my phone, sending one final text for the day, to Michael Chen, Dad's oldest friend and the head of corporate security at Chen Technologies. Time to wake up those dormant security protocols Dad put in place. Marcus took the bait. His response came immediately. Everything's ready. Operation Sleeping Beauty is go. I smiled, remembering Dad's code name for the contingency plan he created years ago, when he first suspected Marcus might try something like this. My convenient coma had given my brother exactly what he wanted, the perfect opportunity to show his true colors. Now it was time to show him mine. The next morning, while Marcus was undoubtedly preparing for another day of corporate fraud, I was meeting with a team of lawyers and investigators in Sarah's home office. My body was still weak, but my mind was sharp as ever. The recordings are damning, Michael said, playing selected clips from my hospital room. Marcus's voice filled the room, bragging about each illegal transaction, each manipulated contract. He basically confessed to everything. Sarah nodded, adding documents to an already substantial pile. We've traced the offshore accounts he mentioned. He wasn't as clever as he thought. Every transaction left a trail. What about Dad's insurance policy? I asked, reviewing the fraudulent medical bills. That's where it gets interesting, Sarah replied, pulling out another file. Marcus didn't just cancel your coverage. He diverted the policy payments into a shell company. The insurance was still active. He just rerouted the benefits to himself. I wasn't surprised. During his bedside monologues, Marcus had revealed his whole philosophy. Family is just another word for convenient resources. He'd seen nothing wrong with stealing from his comatose sister. In his mind, he deserved everything because he was smart enough to take it. The board meeting is scheduled for tomorrow, Michael added. Marcus has no idea that half the board members have been quietly gathering evidence against him for months. Your father put some very loyal people in key positions. Dad had always played the long game. He'd known Marcus might try something like this eventually, which is why he'd built in so many safeguards. The dormant security protocols weren't just about protecting company data. They were about protecting the company from Marcus. What about the Mitchell contract? I asked. And the other companies he sold the algorithm to? Sarah grimaced. 3 separate companies, each thinking they had exclusive rights. The potential lawsuits could bankrupt Chen Technologies. Unless, Michael interjected with a slight smile, someone could prove that those contracts were signed under fraudulent circumstances by someone without proper authority. I nodded, understanding the plan. Because I never actually signed over my shares or my rights to the algorithm. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. Everything Marcus did was technically illegal. Once we expose the fraud, all those contracts become void. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Where are you? Need those papers signed ASAP. I showed the message to Sarah, who grinned. Perfect timing. Ready to set the trap? I texted back. At Sarah's house. Still too weak to travel. Could you bring the papers here? His response was immediate. Be there in 30. Don't make this difficult. Sis. While we waited, the team got into position. Federal agents hidden in adjacent rooms, recording equipment ready, every detail carefully planned. This would be Marcus's last performance as CEO of Chen Technologies. He arrived exactly on schedule, practically bouncing with impatience. Finally, look, just sign these and we can all move on with our lives. I sat in a wheelchair, partly for effect, partly because I still couldn't stand for long, looking through the papers slowly. It's a lot to take in, Marcus. Maybe you could explain exactly what happened while I was sleeping. He launched into his practice speech about making necessary business decisions, protecting company interests, consolidating resources. Each word was another nail in his coffin. And the quantum processing algorithm? I asked innocently. The one Dad specifically left to me? How did that end up being sold to multiple companies? Marcus froze mid-sentence. How did you know about that? I finished for him. It's amazing what you can hear in a coma. People say all sorts of interesting things when they think no one's listening. The color drained from his face as realization dawned. You were awake. Not exactly awake, I corrected, but aware enough. Aware enough to hear every call, every meeting, every confession about what you were doing with my inheritance. He recovered quickly, his arrogance returning. Doesn't matter. It's your word against mine. And who's going to believe the memories of someone who was in a coma? That's a good question, I said, nodding to Sarah. She pressed a button on her laptop, and Marcus's own voice filled the room. Mitchell Industries was easy to fool. Same with the others. They all think they have exclusive rights. By the time they figure it out, the money will be safely hidden away. Marcus lunged for the laptop, but the federal agents chose that moment to enter. Marcus Chen, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and insurance fraud. You can't do this, he snarled as they handcuffed him. I'm the CEO. I run this company. Actually, Michael said, stepping into the room, as of this morning, you don't. The board voted unanimously to remove you, pending criminal charges. All your recent deals are being investigated, and the offshore accounts have been frozen. As they led him away, Marcus turned to me one last time. This was all a setup. The whole time? Not the coma, I said quietly. Not the accident, but everything after. Your choices, your actions, your crimes. Those were all you, Marcus. I just made sure someone was paying attention. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and corporate restructuring. The companies Marcus had defrauded were surprisingly understanding once we explained the situation. Many of them had dealt with Dad and knew his reputation for integrity. The medical bills were reversed once the insurance fraud was exposed. My inheritance was recovered from the offshore accounts, along with substantial damages. Chen Technologies not only survived but thrived once the truth came out. 6 months later, I sat in Dad's old office, my office now, looking at a framed photo on the wall. It showed our family years ago, before greed and ambition had corrupted Marcus's heart, before he decided that family was just another resource to be exploited. Sarah knocked on the door, carrying a thick envelope. The final sentencing report. 15 years, no possibility of early parole. The judge was not impressed by his family-first offense. I took the envelope but didn't open it. Has he said anything? Just that he never thought you had it in you, that you were always the quiet one, the careful one. I smiled, remembering all those hours in the hospital, listening to Marcus unknowingly confess his crimes. Sometimes being quiet is the best way to hear what people are really saying. The company moved forward, stronger for having survived Marcus's betrayal. The quantum processing algorithm, properly developed and legally licensed, revolutionized the industry. Dad's legacy was not only preserved but enhanced. And Marcus? He had plenty of time in federal prison to think about the sister he'd underestimated. The quiet one who turned his own arrogance into evidence. The careful one who protected not just her inheritance, but the company's future. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about being still, being patient, and letting people reveal exactly who they are. Dad would have appreciated the irony. He'd always said that success wasn't about being the loudest voice in the room, it was about knowing when to listen. And I had listened, right up until the moment it was time to speak.